Everyone knows the story. The Library of Alexandria, the greatest collection of knowledge in the ancient world, burned to the ground by Julius Caesar. But in 2004, archaeologists finally excavated the site. And what they found rewrites history. No ash, no char, no evidence of a great fire. So if Caesar didn't burn it, what happened to the 500,000 scrolls? The answer isn't one simple story. It's a 700-year-long mystery with 5 competing theories. We're going to put the receipts on all of them. We'll analyse the archaeological data, the ancient texts, and the forensic evidence to reveal the truth. And the real story is more relevant today than you think. For 2,000 years, historians blamed Caesar. One man, one fire, one tragedy. It's a simple, dramatic story, but the ancient sources tell 5 different, conflicting stories. Theory 1, Caesar's fire in 48 BCE. Theory 2, Emperor Aurelian's civil war in the 270 CE. Theory 3, a Christian mob destroying the Serapeum in 391 CE. Theory 4, the Arab conquest in 642 CE. Theory 5, a slow, agonizing death from budget cuts, neglect, and time. 5 theories, 1 building, 0 agreement. Then archaeologists started digging, and what they found rewrites the story, not with a bang, but a whimper. The Library of Alexandria, founded around 283 BCE by Ptolemy II. It wasn't just a library, it was a research institute called the Museum, dedicated to the Muses. Scholars lived there, state-funded, free room, food, and access to every text in the known world. It was the ancient world's Silicon Valley. Ancient sources claim anywhere from 400,000 to 700,000 scrolls at its peak. For centuries, it was the undisputed intellectual centre of the Mediterranean. Then, according to the legend, Caesar torched it during his siege in 48 BCE. But in 2004, a Polish-Egyptian team led by Dr. Grzegorz Majchrek excavated the Bruchian district, the library's location. They found Roman-era structures, intact pavements, stone walls, and 0 evidence of a catastrophic fire. So if Caesar didn't burn it, what happened? Let's put receipts on this. Plutarch, writing over a century after the siege, is the one who gives us the dramatic story of the fire spreading from the dockyards to the library. Fire spread from the dockyards. That's the key. The library wasn't on the docks. It was a separate complex, 800 metres inland. What burned? Warehouses, full of grain and, yes, scrolls. But these were scrolls waiting for export, not the curated collection of the Royal Library. And here's the kicker. The geographer Strabo visited Alexandria around 20 BCE, a full 28 years after Caesar's siege. He describes the museum, the scholars, the whole complex, in the present tense, as a functioning institution.
So, 2,000 years of blame and Caesar's alibi checks out. History just lost its favorite arsonist.
If Caesar had burned it to the ground, Strabo would have been describing ruins. He wasn't. The library survived Caesar. So when did it actually die? Not all at once. It was a slow, painful death over centuries. The first major blow comes in the 270s CE during the Roman Empire's civil wars. The Emperor Aurelian besieges Alexandria and his forces destroy the royal quarter, the Bruchian district, where the library stood. The historian Ammianus Marcellinus, writing about 120 years later, says Aurelian's attack laid waste to the district. This is our most likely candidate for the destruction of the main library building. But here's where it gets messy. We have no eyewitness accounts of the library itself being destroyed. Ammianus is writing long after the fact. It's second-hand at best. What we do know is that after this, the mentions of the Great Library dry up. The intellectual centre of the world begins to shift. To Constantinople, to Rome, to Antioch. the scholars of Alexandria? They move on. Now we come to the myth that everyone gets wrong. 391 CE, the Christian bishop Theophilus of Alexandria orders the destruction of the Serapeum, a pagan temple. Inside that temple was a daughter library, a smaller but still significant collection of maybe 40,000 scrolls. Ancient sources, like the historian Socrates Scholasticus, describe the Serapeum's destruction in detail, but none of them mention the main, royal library. Why? Because by 391 CE, the main library was likely already gone. It had been a memory for over a century. The destruction of the Serapeum is a real historical event, but it's not the destruction of the great Library of Alexandria. For 2,000 years, people have conflated the two. So here's what the evidence actually shows. The Library of Alexandria wasn't murdered, it was starved. The Ptolemaic dynasty that founded it was lavish. They poured money into it, state-funded scholars, free food, unlimited budgets for copying scrolls. But when Rome took over in 30 BCE, Alexandria went from being the centre of a kingdom to just another provincial capital. The investment stopped. By 200 CE, the Roman Emperor Caracalla massacred Alexandrian scholars during a riot. The intellectual class was decimated, funding was slashed, maintenance was deferred. And here's the part most people miss. Scrolls don't last forever. Papyrus, in the humidity of the Mediterranean, degrades in 200 to 300 years, unless scribes are constantly recopying them, which requires money, which Alexandria no longer had. By 200 AD, the writer Athenaeus of Naucratis mournfully wrote that the library and its collection were already just in the memory of men, not burned, forgotten, emptied. In 642 CE, the Arab general Amr ibn al-As captured Alexandria for the Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab. Centuries later, chroniclers claimed he burned the Library of Alexandria, finishing what Caesar supposedly started. But the sources from the time? Silent. That famous quote about Umar ordering the scrolls destroyed. If they agree with the Quran, we don't need them. If they contradict it, burn them. Doesn't appear until the 12th century, written by a Christian author long after the fact. Historians consider it legend, not record. Modern archaeology supports that skepticism. By the 7th century, the royal quarter was already rubble, the museum gone, the scholars scattered. Even if Amr's soldiers had looked for a library to burn, they'd have found only ruins. So yes, the Arab conquest reshaped Egypt, but the Library of Alexandria, it had vanished long before. The fire remembered by legend was one history had already burned out. Here's what 2,000 years of evidence reveals. The Library of Alexandria died the way most great institutions die, not in one catastrophic moment, but in 1,000 small cuts. Caesar's fire? Real, but it burned dockside warehouses, not the library. Aurelian's siege damaged the royal quarter, likely destroying the main building, but it was already in decline. Theophilus's mob destroyed the Serapeum, a different library, over a century later. The Arab conquest? By 642 CE, there was nothing left to burn. The Library of Alexandria was killed by political neglect, budget starvation, and time itself. The scrolls didn't burn, they rotted. The scholars didn't flee a fire, they left for better funding. We remember the myth of the fire because it's dramatic. One villain, one moment, one great tragedy. But the truth is harder, and it's a warning. Civilizations don't collapse from a single catastrophe. They starve from 1,000 quiet decisions to stop investing in knowledge. So here's the real lesson of the Library of Alexandria. It's a mental model I call the information loss cascade. When you stop funding the preservation of knowledge, you don't lose it all at once. It happens in stages. 1. First, you stop acquiring new knowledge. The budget for new scrolls is cut. 2. Then you stop preserving old knowledge. the scribes who recopy decaying scrolls are let go. 3. Then, the knowledge degrades naturally. The papyrus turns to dust. 4. Finally, the experts leave. The scholars and librarians, with no resources and no collection, take their knowledge with them. No fire needed, just time and neglect. Think about it. How many modern institutions are dying the same quiet death? Universities facing budget cuts, public libraries closing branches, digital archives built on servers that will one day fail. We're not immune to the information loss cascade. We're just living in a time where the scrolls are digital and the libraries are servers. And we're just as good at ignoring the slow decay until it's too late. Here's my question for you. If you could save one piece of lost knowledge from the ancient world, a book, a formula, a history, what would it be? Drop your answer in the comments below. I'll be reading. If you believe that history is more than just simple stories and that the real lessons are in the details, subscribe. We're just getting started. That is the very un-Hollywood end of the Library of Alexandria. Not one giant fire, just centuries of people quietly not paying the papyrus bill. I am Lara Cross, field archaeologist, here to confirm that history is mostly one long... It's more complicated than that.
And I am Miles Vector, data gremlin, world traveler, and map hoarder, here to remind you that if your archive has one point of failure, you don't have a library. You have kindling.
Today we chased 5 suspects, found 0 smoking scrolls, and learned the real culprit was politics, neglect, and time.
Bonus fact: head librarian Eratosthenes once measured Earth's circumference with shadows. Modest job, planet-sized side project.
Another one, ships docking in Alexandria were reportedly forced to hand over their scrolls so the library could copy them, and it forgot to return the originals. Peak overdue book energy.
For more history that refuses to stay tidy, subscribe. Check out our monthly newsletter, link in the description. Drop your favorite Alexandria theory, and tell us which mystery Alara and I should break next.